Welcome to 7th grade Life Science. This year you will be learning about cells, human body systems, plants, and living in space. So in order to do the experiments for that, we need to know a lot about our science safety equipment and our tools that we use in science. So let's get started. Balance to get the mass of an object. So we take a large object or whatever object we're trying to measure, and we lay it on the stage for the plate to be able to measure it. Now the middle one, this middle mass is for larger objects. So notice I'm moving it down until it clips into place. This one, it has to fall into the little notch. So I'm going to move it until it lies in place. Now I noticed that it went all the way down here, so that it didn't stay at the center where it was balanced. So I'm going to back it up one, and I noticed that it goes back up. So then I'm going to take my 10-gram measure, make sure it latches into each one of the little notches, and I continue to move it until it starts to move downward. Okay, that was a little too much because it went down below the middle part. So I back it up. Now in this front one, it measures in tenths of a gram or grams. So I'm going to use a pencil to help me move it a little bit at a time. And we just gradually move this one along the beam until it balances right at the middle over there. So a little bit too much. Back it up with my pencil. This one is very sensitive because it's tenths of a gram. A little bit more. I'm watching for it to come right in the center. Continue just a little bit more. Okay, I think we could call that one balanced. So we have 400 in the middle on this big one. We have 60 on the back one. So 400 plus 60 is 460 at the front. This one just happened to be at exactly the 4. So on that one, it would be 464. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on that so you can see 464. Now if it had been just a little bit over like that, I would have counted each of these as decimal points, 464.1, 0.2, 0.3. So you have to count each one of those little lines as point because those are a tenth of a gram. So 464 is how much the mass of this fossil is. I want to teach you a little bit right now about how to use the microscope. Some of you, this may be a review. So always start with the smallest objective pointing downward. The smallest objective is usually the 4, and it's usually the red here, and that means it's going to be magnifying 40 times. So you have the 4 times the 10 from the eyepiece, so that would be a 40 times magnification. So what we would do is then put our slide underneath on the stage. Put the stage clips over it to keep it in place. We might need to move it just a little bit, but we're going to put it there. Don't forget you have to turn on the light in the back. So there's a little switch right here to turn on the light. Okay, once you look into the eyepiece, you're going to adjust the focus. First of all, you want to use the large knob so that you can make a big movements on it, and then do fine adjustment with this one. This is called the coarse adjustment. This one's the fine adjustment, until you get it really in focus there. Then at that point you can turn and switch to the next power objective, which is the yellow one, and that multiplies 10 times 10, which is 100 magnification. Check your focus, and now you're pulling into a smaller area of the slide, but you're getting a more up close picture of it. Finally, if you need to go to the highest magnification, that's a 40 times 10, which is a 400 magnification. So this is called a monocular microscope, and this is a typical microscope that we use with slides. The second kind of microscope that we have in our science lab is called a binocular microscope. On the binocular microscope, we have two eyepieces, not just one, and they can be adjusted. They can be moved in and out to fit your eyes. So in this one, what we're wanting to do is you'll take this one to look at things like samples of little specimens and things, or for example, this little dried frog here, we can put him underneath there. We may look at some crystals. So we put, be sure to turn the light on, and then put our eyes down. We want to use this big knob here to do the focusing, and so we can move it up or down until the object comes into focus. And there are two numbers on here. There's 4 times, and then we can turn it, and there's 2 times. Now don't forget that up here you have a 10, so that's 10 times 2 is 20 magnification. Or if you rotate it around to the 4 times 10 is 40 magnification. So this one is a really good one when we're dissecting. Sometimes this is called a dissecting microscope, and this one is a really good one to use with specimens or crystals and rocks and things. So this one's a fun microscope to use. The next thing I want to review with you is about using a graduated cylinder. So we have small graduated cylinders, or we have the larger ones. This one only measures 10 milliliters, and this one measures 100 milliliters. We'll be using graduated cylinders a lot whenever we get into our ecology unit. This one right here is going to be measured or marked. If you look between it, it says, for example, 50, and then you see little lines that are along it. 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. So it's measuring by 1 milliliter between each of the long lines here. So 50 to 60, there's 10 little lines. Coming over here, this one is in, it's going in 10 milliliters, and between each one of them is 5 lines, so that makes it measuring by 2 milliliters, so 0.2 milliliters. So for example, this is 4, 4.2, 4.4, 4.6, 4.8, 5.0. So that's the way you use the small ones. So you have to know what your little increments are in those. So another thing I want to remind you about is whenever you're reading it, you always sit your graduated cylinder down on a level surface, and sometimes you might see a little dip in the water or the liquid called the meniscus. So you want to read the bottom of the meniscus, that curve that you see, and so reading the bottom of it, not the upper edges of it. So read the bottom of the curve called the meniscus, and that will give you an accurate measurement.